I will try to talk loud to make sure you can all hear me. When you have comments or questions, make sure you also speak up well. For two reasons. One is so that everyone else in the class can hear you. The other is because I didn't tape all my lectures. We'll talk about it in a second. Attendance is rated. And if you miss class, you do have an opportunity to make it up by watching the videotape lectures. Anyway, happy to have you all here. I think word has gotten out that this is an easy A because my enrollment has been going up steadily. Last fall was the first time they taught a fall semester, and I had 21 students. I had 70 students winter semester, and we're up to 83 right now for this semester. So it should be a good class. Should be lots of good things. Why this course? This is something I pulled off of the net somewhere. My focus here in this class is real-world software development. I am not an academic. I don't have a PhD. I have basically worked in industry. Well, I graduated 40 years ago, but frankly, I was working doing software development as an undergrad on research projects here. I've helped start up software companies. I've advised corporations. I've acted as an expert witness in litigation that involves computer technology. I've shipped commercial products. I wrote a computer game. How many of you play No Man's Sky? Anyone? Okay, a few of you. Now, basically 34 years ago, Wayne Holder and I were trying to envision something like No Man's Sky, but we were working on an 8-bit Apple II, so it was pretty primitive. On the other hand, it was successful enough that you can find a very lengthy Wikipedia article on it. And I play No Man's Sky, and I'm highly amused because it's kind of like, we would have killed to be able to do just a fraction of this. Anyway, but the point is, my focus here is to prepare you to work in the software industry, or to work somewhere in industry in information technology. The focus here is going to be on what you need to learn to be successful working in IT, and as importantly, how to recognize danger signs in your environment. Whether that's from a management point of view, whether that's a project point of view, whatever. Why do projects fail? And software projects fail big time. Let me give you probably my worst example to date. Several years ago, the United Kingdom decided they wanted to do a complete software revamping of their whole health and welfare systems. They spent a number of years and, listen to this number, 16 billion pounds. We're talking over $20 million, $20 billion. You know what happened in the end? They abandoned the whole thing. They determined they had no usable code, having spent $20 billion. They had no usable code. Okay? This goes on more often than you think. I have reviewed projects like this, not on that scale, but close. I've reviewed a project like that personally that was on the $500 million. 4 years, $500 million, zero code in production. This happens. Software companies live and die over project failures. So the point here is to, and here's what's so sad. The root causes have all been well known for 30, 40 years. It's nothing mysterious. It's not like, oh, there's just this unknown property of software that we don't understand and this is why these projects fail. No. The root causes have been obvious for decades. It's just either no one reads or no one believes it when they're told. And again, personal experience. I've had experiences going in. An experience I'll talk about more in detail, but where I went 3 times in 3 years to the same major project at a financial company whose name you'd recognize. And they had this re-engineering project, and I kept saying, here are the reasons why it's going to fail. And they said, thank you very much. They'd bring me back a year later, and it would be worse. And I did this for 3 years, and a year after my third time, the senior VP, the one who had been commissioning all this, got fired and the project got canned. This is a reality of how IT is practiced, and we'll talk about the reasons why. Now, goals for the class. Understand the root causes of software success and failure, because there's a lot of software that does succeed. There's a lot of great software out there, and there's a lot of great software development groups out there. And you really, really want to go work for the companies that are really good at software development. To gain some practical experience, we'll talk about this in a second. We will actually do a project, divide up in teams and do projects here. To better understand the sociological and interpersonal nature of software development. Okay, the root causes of most IT failures are human. They're not technological. And in cases where it appears to be technological, it often is because people just didn't believe that what they're trying to do was impossible. Often in spite of other people waving their hand and saying, no, that's not going to work. Oh, yes, you can. You just have to be more committed. Seriously, well, we'll get to that. That was another failure. Actually, it was the one that I'm talking about where I went in 3 times. Third time, they had this corporate assurance. You know, if everyone's committed and sincere, we're going to succeed. It's like, that doesn't get planes off the ground. To learn to self-manage within a dynamic, changing, and inherently ambiguous work environment. How many of you have actually already worked off campus in software development? Oh, hey! So you already know this. There's nothing here for me to tell you. You know what it's like to have... I have a son-in-law who does QA for a health software company, and they're busily doing some data migration because of a firm they bought up. And he was told by his manager to only do happy path testing. Meaning only test for things if everything was done right. Do not test for potential problems. He's just sort of ripping his hair out. Because what does he know? It's all going to come back later anyway. To learn to manage orders of ignorance is a professional skill, which is one of the things we're going to actually talk about today. You should have read. And most importantly, and I've added this in because I've had students come back with this, to decide whether or not you should go work for that company or startup that just made you an offer. I've had students come back and say, I went out and did my interviews, and there was a company that made me an offer, and I went there and I looked around and said, no, I'm not going to work there because I can see all the things we talked about in the class. Now, how the class runs. There's a class website. Now, actually, let me ask you a different way. How many of you have not seen my emails? Okay, a couple of people. Check your spam folders. I've sent some emails out via Learning Suite. Check your spam folders for them. There is a class website where all this is explained, and we'll actually, let me just go to it right now. If you ask, what's the syllabus and how do I get an A, here's where you want to go. Class website, got an overview of the whole class and some standard boilerplate there. Class calendar, this is a very important one to look at because it shows you what you're expected to do each week. What's due, what we'll talk about in class, so on and so forth. I have it broken down week by week. Coursework talks about the grading background, and we're going to talk about this here in class, but this is, you don't have to worry about taking notes about the grading breakdown because it's all right here on the website. We talk about online readings in a second, and podcasts, they're all here. I will post, after each class, my lecture video and the slides I used. You can use those for review. If you've missed class and get permission to make it up, you can do that. And there is extra credit reading, so I have a list here of For those who want to do extra credit, there are books here you can read for extra credit. Also, the articles of possible interest. This is not extra credit, but this is just stuff where I'll park things that you may want to read, that you might find interesting. Okay, let's go back to slide. Slack. How many of you have not joined Slack yet? Oh, that's a lot fewer than I thought. Okay, that was in the email as well. It's cs428byu.slack.com. I prefer to use that. I'm going to prefer to use that over email for communications. I'll probably still use email from time to time as a backup, but it's more immediate so that, particularly when you have questions, as has come up, you can just ask me a questionnaire, I can reply, and boom, everyone else on Slack sees the answer. You can private message me there as well, or you can send me emails. The project wikis are going to be on GitHub. I really don't care at this point that Microsoft bought them up. And we'll talk a bit about how the project is going to work. All the assignments and tests will be through Learning Suite. And I assume you know how to do that. Class here will start at 2 o'clock sharp every Monday. It will be very rare that class goes for the full 2.5 hours. I just don't like to talk that long, and it's just hard. It's just hard to stay attention. I will, if I will usually do biology breaks, and I'll usually try to time them so it's not during the between class period. So if I'm giving you a biology break, it will typically be either 20 till the hour or right after the top of the hour, so you're not dealing with everyone else using the bathrooms while they're rushing between the classes. Generally speaking, what will happen is that my lectures will typically be about an hour and a half's worth. So I'll do a lecture, we'll do a biology break, I'll do another lecture. Typically we'll wrap up about 3:30, not 4:30. And then you can use the time for team meetings, you can just go off and do other stuff, so on and so forth. Attendance does count. You'll be docked 2% for each class you miss. We will take roll every class. I'll do an oral roll this class, but as we get in, and then with 83 of you, I would love to know all your names. I have trouble with my children, okay? So it's, and I confuse them with the dogs sometimes. So anyway, but we will take roll. Now, if you have to miss class, I'm actually very understanding. In fact, I've got someone who already contacted me saying they have this opportunity to go meet with, I think, the people from Family Search later this afternoon. He said, it's okay. I said, yeah, that's an excused absence, and just watch the video and get that. I am generally very understanding. If you are sick, stay home. We have 80 people crammed in here. There's no reason to come and infect the rest of the people. Just say, I'm sick. I will say, stay home, walk to the lecture. You have an excused absence. So generally speaking, I tend to be pretty forgiving. Now, this next one. It's one of my policies. Oh, bless your hearts. I see a lot of you have paper and pencil out. All electronic devices down during the class. This would be there is, of course, still a fair amount of debate over this issue, but it is basically my policy. It was Chuck's policy before me, and I just kept it. I prefer it. The truth is, again, my lectures are recorded, and they're posted. The slides are posted. So it's not like you're going to miss something. The notes you need to take are basically things that you may just want to jot down to remind yourself. As a bit of foreshadowing here, there's one test in the class. It is the midterm. It will be on the Monday before Thanksgiving. It is open book, open note, open web. My goal. And we'll talk about, thank you very much. And what you'll find is that most of the questions on the test, and I'll give you an example in a few minutes here. It's setting up a situation and then saying, identify, say, 3 risks that you see with references from the readings. So it's kind of like, okay, Brooks talks about this in this part of chapter 2. DeMarco and Lister talk about this in chapter 7. You talked about this in this online article you posted. And then it'll have like, and then give, say, 2 mitigations. I mean, it varies from question to question what I have. But that's it. And what I'm trying to do here is get you familiar enough with material that when you see these situations, you realize and say, oh my gosh, I know what's going to happen. I know how this ends. Because that's been my professional life for 20 years. Something you will hear me say again and again and again, one of my favorite maxims, which comes out of The Art of Systems Architecting by Repton and Meyer, is that in creating a new software program, all the important mistakes are made the first day. That is a profound truism. Most software failures you can trace back almost to day 1. And unquestioned assumptions or unvalidated assumptions that were baked into the whole project. Okay, Tanner, are you here? Oh, Tanner, stand up. This is Tanner Jorgensen. He has completed the class. And it was grueling, wasn't it? I mean, it was just, sweat of the brow. His office hours and his cubicle location are posted on the website. You can say that, Tanner. And Learning Suite. He's here to help you. He'll be doing a lot of the grading. And the standard question is what to call me, okay? I'm not a PhD, so it's not Dr. Professor Webster's fine, Brother Webster's fine. If you complete the class, you can call me Bruce. But you have to finish the class. Okay? Okay, grading overview. Attendance, 8%. Oh, sorry, you have a question.
I just have a question about books. Just I looked at Brooks' book. And do we get the books, or do we have like online PDF sets about individual parts of it? Because his just seemed like to reference other essays that he didn't actually include in his book. And what I saw, at least chapter 1.
Let's see. That doesn't sound right. Because the first 14, 15 chapters are actually just a reprint of the original 1975 book.
I think the added chapters are...
And the added chapters are basically like 15 through 19.
Those ones are other articles.
And then there's one's a new article called New 1989. No Silver Bullet. Then a revisit of No Silver Bullet. Then he's got a chapter, which I will tell you when we get there, is one of the chapters you want to put a little sticky tab on because if you have a physical copy, because it's basically an outline of his original book, and it's a great cheat sheet for the midterm. It's kind of like, look through there. I know he said it somewhere. Oh, okay, yeah, it's chapter 5. Go over chapter 5. So I'm not sure what you're talking about.
But chapter 1 was literally a paragraph on like what I was looking at.
No, that's not it. Here's the book. This is chapter 1, the tar pit. And they're not terribly long, but yeah, I'm not sure what you were looking at, but that's what it looks like. Other questions? Yes.
So we need to get the books for this class?
Yes. You need to get the books for the class. You need to have them because you'll want to reference them on the midterm. You cannot pass the midterm if you don't have these books. Yes.
In the same vein of the reading, you said that we record our reading on Learning Suite.
Yes.
And the podcast as well. I wasn't able to find those. Where are they under Learning Suite exactly?
Hang on. Bring up Learning Suite here. It should all be published. I'm pretty sure I look at my
Learning Suite.
Learning Suite. Assignments. Go to Student View. Oh, look at that, the readings aren't there. Back to instructor view. But if I look at instructor view, there are all the readings. So I've got to figure out why these aren't posted yet. Thank you. Okay. That's I go through this sort of every semester. You know, I publish the whole thing, and it's like, no, you have to do this as well. You have to do that as well. So thanks for calling my attention. Other questions before we go to the next slide?
Right here.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to record the reading of the 5 words of ignorance.
Yep.
after
Yep.
class.
And that's not due till like Saturday midnight or something. Yeah.
Do we have an older version of Mythical Man Month? Is that okay?
It's okay, except there are a couple essays that you probably really want to read. If you've got the 75 version, it doesn't have No Silver Bullet, which is actually a critically important essay. But you can probably find that essay online. It will probably just, it'll impact some of what you have to reference in there. But okay, let's go back to the. Okay, attendance 8%, readings 24%, basically 5% for each of the 3 books, and 1% for 9 readings. Podcasts, we'll talk about the podcast. Chuck Knudsen, who taught the class before me, made a number of video podcasts talking about various topics in software engineering in greater depth. I have actually added, and will continue to add, some additional external videos on various topics. You can pick whatever you want to watch, whatever interests you. There's over 20, there's almost 25 there. You only need to pick 10. You do have to sort of keep up a schedule, but you can certainly watch ahead. So if you decide to do an all-day binge, you know, you're homesick with the flu and you're going to watch, 8 hours of podcast. I don't know if there are some that are pretty long, but that's it. Midterm we'll talk about in a second. That's 25% of your grade. The projects, which we'll also talk about, are 33%, and you can get up to 8% extra credit by reading additional books, because I really want you to read. Okay, reading. Books you're responsible for obtaining and reading: Mythical Man Month, Peopleware, and Accelerate. 2 of the most important books in software engineering, and hardly anyone reads them or follows them. But I can tell you, I was telling one of the students while we were both waiting for class to start, I have been writing and lecturing and teaching and consulting on software engineering for really since the mid-90s, actually before then even. Every time I think I have some new insight on project management or failure, I can go back to Brooks and I can almost always find that he already touched upon it 40 years ago. And yet, and what you'll find is that everyone's heard about this book and they know 1 or 2 things from it. The classic, well, you can't, make a baby in 1 month with 9 women. That's referring to the Mythical Man Month. I know there are managers who think you can, seriously. Well, we'll just add more staff, and that's Brooks' law. Adding staff to a late project makes it later. But there's a whole lot more in that. Peopleware. Marco and Lister spent years, many years, going in, reviewing troubled projects, and they have some very research-based thing on what works and what doesn't. How many of you are aware of the ongoing controversy about open office plans versus closed offices for engineers? Okay? They wrote about that in the first edition 20 plus years ago. In fact, one of the things I'm proudest of is at Pages, which was one of the software startups I did, is that when we moved into what were our permanent headquarters, I demanded and got an actual separate office for each and every engineer. And that was a bit of a fight, but it was, and it paid off in my opinion. Now this is a new book I've just added. Over the summer, I was part of a consulting group that worked with a Europe-based insurance firm that was looking, or at least a portion of it was looking at modernizing their IT practices. This is a 100-year-old company, so some of the practices are a little creaky. And this was very much a focus on DevOps, CI/CD, containers, and so on and so forth. This was one of the books we referenced. I read it and thought, okay, I need to add this to the mix so that you know what the current best practices are. The nice thing about this book is that it is not just an advocacy. It's actual surveys over a 3-year period of companies that are getting high performance in their software development versus those that aren't, saying, what's the difference? And that's what they document here. What are the differences? And what you'll find is they have a list of practices and technologies. And that's what they talk about there. So I want you to be aware of that, to go in so that when someone says, well, I don't know, we're thinking about using CI/CD, what did you think about that? Oh yeah, we talked about that in class. So you sound intelligent. These readings are going to be what you're going to draw on for the midterm. You're going to be asked for references. References are going to come from the readings. So yes, you do want to have the books. You do want to do the readings. The online readings. Are here on the readings and the podcasts. Are here on the readings and podcastings. These are presented in the order, so you've got Armor first. Most of my stuff that I have you read, this is stuff I've written over the past 20 plus years. A lot of it about 10 years ago when I was doing a column. Most of these are pretty short. You can see this is about 2 pages long. These are very fast reads. I like to think they're relevant. You can decide for yourself if that's the case. Video podcasts, again, and I've got to finish up some of the links, but here, because the server that this all existed on in the old website had a serious security issue, and they almost shut it down in the middle of last semester, and I begged them to keep it up so my students could actually finish the semester. And then I basically gave me a new server to start from scratch. I installed WordPress. I built this website from scratch. And I've moved all the video files over, but I've got to finish linking them here. So this is where you can come and just pick topics that interest you and watch them. And each one, even if it's parts like with testing, there's like 5 parts. Each of those counts as a separate podcast. So, okay, yes.
So when it comes to passing off that we've done the readings in the podcast, is it just based on honor code, check the box kind of thing?
Basically, it'll ask you. You go to the Learning Suite, and it'll say, "What did you read or what did you watch?" And what did you think about this? And I've got to make this. Okay, midterm. No final. No final.
Final?
Never ends. Yes. No final. Actually, yes.
Quick question about the video podcast. So we just choose 10 out of the 20?
Yeah. Any 10 that interests you.
Okay.
So this is sort of based on either what you're doing. I mean, you're completely free to choose. Personal interest, maybe it's relevant to what you're doing within your team. Maybe it's relevant to something you're doing at work, whatever. Just pick any 10. There is no final. In years past, and this was, again, following Chuck's lead, I've offered a final for someone who wants to take it for extra credit. This is the last, I've taught this 3 semesters so far. Each semester I've typically had 1 to 2 people who said that. I'm not sure I'm even going to offer that this semester. So don't count on that safety net. This is open book, open note, open device, electronic. You can do it, but we'll have probably a 12-hour window on that day. So you can just park yourself at your apartment or the library or anywhere where you've got an outlet for your laptop. First semester I taught this, it was over in the Tanner building, and they had those nifty tables and everyone had power, and I thought, this is cool, they can just take the test right here. And then the second time I taught it was over in the Marb, and there were like 4 outlets in the entire room. Uh-oh! So now it's just, okay, go take it anywhere, and you've got a window. It'll be timed for 3 hours, so you've got to get it done within 3 hours. Must get at least 6. I have never had anyone flunk the midterm. I think the lowest grade I've ever had on the midterm is like a C+. Because it's open book, open note. If you do the reading and watch the podcast, it's kind of hard. I mean, I mean, it's kind of hard not to do well. And this is a sample question. I'll typically, what I'll do is I'll give you a hypothetical, here's the situation. And then I'll ask, is here 2 major risk factors that you see with 3 recommendations on how best to approach the project with at least 1 citation for each, and we'll review what I consider an acceptable citation. The points you get, and typically what you'll have here, this question will be worth 25 points. You'll get 5 points per answer here, and the number of points you get will depend upon how thorough and precise your question, your answer is. In other words, sometimes I'll get an answer that says Brooks chapter 2. It's kind of like, okay, that's a lot of territory that doesn't tell me what you're actually identifying there. But then I'll get someone will write a paragraph, well, as Brooks said, and this, and this is included this, and here's the citation, and it's like, okay, that's a 5-point answer. Yeah.
How heavy are you grading spelling and punctuation?
Oh, I'm very merciful on spelling and punctuation. That's not. I don't care about spelling and. Let me put it this way. I don't care about spelling and punctuation. Particularly since this is a time test, I care that you know the stuff. Your compiler can yammer at you about your code. I'm not going to yammer at you. So that's midterm. Kickstarter project. 30 or grade. Okay, this is, and I know from past experience, this is actually a reason why a lot of people like to sign up for this. Everything will be run through GitHub, and we'll look at that in a second. What I need you to do, we lost a week here because it's only on Mondays, and of course last Monday was Labor Day. So we're sort of a little behind the 8 ball. What I need you to do this week is to go to GitHub. In fact, let me go ahead and bring it up here. And I'll actually demonstrate how to do this. This is the page. Oops, that's the old page. I obviously have a bad link there. Okay. Correct that link. Where is it all playing? There we go. So here's what the page looks like, and we already actually have one game proposal up there. Joseph's proposal example is named after Joseph Hansen, who was my very first TA, first semester I taught this. So what you're going to do is, in order to create an idea, if you have a project idea, you should click on New Page. We'll give it a title, My Nifty Project. You need to fill out a description of it, and actually, if you go back, I'm going to cheat and go back here real quick. Yeah, that's the, should have done this smarter. You go to Joseph's proposal example, and you can shamelessly do this. Just go to his, do a Control-A copy. Now we'll do the, close this out. Now we'll do the page, okay. Project. And I'm going to shamelessly copy Joseph. Oh yeah, that's. looks like my copy copied a lot of stuff that I didn't want to copy. Okay, here we go. Let's get this out of here. Get all this out of here. That's nifty. Okay. Now, so now I've got this here. I've got my nifty project, and now I can go back to the main wiki page. Now, please be careful when you edit the main wiki page. Not to wipe out stuff that's already there. So now I've got number 3.
That's number 2.
Oh, my hand is over to one side. My nifty project. That's what I have. I don't do a lot of editing here. go and save. So now my project is here, and I can click, and it takes me over to my project page, so on and so forth. So that's what you do to, don't put the mouse in there. Come with your effect. I think I actually really like the graphic. This one has, there we go. Anyway, so I need you this week to do one of two things. Add a project, or if someone's already added a project, you look at it and say, that's as good as anything I would add. Just add your name to the interested party list. I don't necessarily want 80 projects next Monday for us to go through. What we'll end up with is something on the order of about 12 projects. We're looking at 6 to 9, maybe 6 to 10 people per project, yes.
Can you say that you're interested in more than one project?
Yeah, oh yes. And that's the other thing, is that you can be, because the ones that survive are going to be the ones that get the most votes, pretty much. So, your goals between now and next Monday class are first to either add a project, at least one, you can add multiple ones if you have more than one idea, or add your name to a project that someone else has proposed. And then, what you need to do, and probably do this Monday morning before you come to class. I guess that really is the winter one. I've got it like in there. Okay, so let's change that one. And then once this list here grows, just go and increment the number here for all the ones you're interested in. What we'll do next Monday in class is that we will start to screen out projects. Ones that only have like 1, 2, 3 votes, whatever, it's kind of like, okay, they just didn't generate enough interest. And then the ones that are left, we're going to do some rounds of voting. It's always a bit tricky because you have this iterative and numbers are changing. And, are you going to reach a stable state? That sort of issue. But we'll go through and figure out what the projects are and make the final assignments, and if you can have last minute shuffling. If you have friends, if there's groups of you who are friends and you already know that this one, submit a project with all your names on it. If you have enough friends, you can get a guaranteed project. I mean, if you get 5 or 6 people together already, and you all know you want to do it, you're pretty much guaranteed. Okay.
Is there a max number? Like if we see a project that's reached a certain point, we shouldn't sign up on it?
Well, it depends. My experience is once you get above 10 people, it can be hard, but I would sign up for it anyway because I've seen 2 things happen. There's cases where we've actually taken a project, we had so many people interested, that we had 2 groups basically doing competing projects. Just split it. They said, okay, this will be interesting. Got, Group A and Group B, they're both basically doing the same thing. Let's see how they differ from each other. And then what we're going to do through the course, and we'll talk about this in a second, is you'll go through the software development lifecycle once with deliverables that you have to produce. You'll do an in-class demo of your work to date in November. And then at the end of the very last class, you'll need to do a video presentation and another in-class demo of your work to date. Now, here's what you won't be graded on. You won't be graded on whether or not you finished your project. Because a lot of you are going to discover, and this actually is part of the purpose of the class. I usually ask, and I'm formalizing it more now, but I've usually asked, okay, what are your lessons learned at the end of the class? And a lot of the lessons learned are, we bit off way more than we could chew. We thought we could accomplish this, this, and this, and we accomplished like this. But what I do want is I want you to get a sense of that iterative cycle and of having to actually show what's happening. Yes?
So can we still get another grade if we don't get a whole project that we planned done?
Oh, yeah. No, I've never graded anyone down because they didn't actually finish what they did. Because hardly anyone ever finishes what they start. This is one semester class. You know, if this is capstone, 2 semester, yeah. You know, I'd grade you on what you actually complete. But that's not. Now, this is something I'm introducing new. In semesters past, I've had each individual report billable hours, meaning time spent working on your team's project. What I have discovered is that there isn't sufficient transparency within the team, and there really isn't any reporting of how the team as a team is doing on a project each week. So what's going to happen instead is each week after you start at a certain point, you're going to have to submit a status report. This is an Excel template. Everyone uses the same template. You'll still report billable hours, but the team members will report billable hours to their own team members. Because I want each team knowing how much work each of your team members is or is not doing on this project. Peer pressure is a marvelous thing. And I have had projects in the past where we've had like 5 people on the project and 3 of them have done all the work. And the other 2 were reporting billable hours, but really weren't contributing anything. So this, you're going to learn something. This is going to teach you a lot about intra-team dynamics. So what's going to happen? Next week, after we finalize the projects, finalize the teams, you'll set up your wikis. And then basically each week you will have a new deliverable to produce. I will have templates for most of these deliverables, and I will have grading criteria for them. Sort of like, okay, here's a template to use for the org chart. Here's what we expect to see. A lot of these are pretty simple. Org chart is not hard. Basically, you'll do these a week at a time. You'll get all the way through. You'll have individual code review sign-offs. Then on the week before the midterm, each team will have to do an in-class demo of whatever you have working to date. So part of the focus here is, get something that you can demonstrate. However dummied out, however crude, however primitive, have something to demonstrate. And that will also be a chance, in case you got less than stellar grades on any of your deliverables, you can basically, all your deliverables will be reviewed again. In part because you may have to update them because you have done, who knows what is really only, and Tanner knows this because he's heard it a dozen times from me, what's the only real thing you can do to deal with schedule crunch? Can't add people. So you change the schedule, you throw out features. Ultimately, the only answer when you're facing a deadline and you have to meet it, you start throwing out features. And you're going to find that in your own project. You're going to say, oh, yeah, you do this, we do this, we do that. I've had past semesters where we've had students do blockchain projects, and they end up spending most of the semester trying to figure out how to do blockchain. They have very little in the way of actual functioning code. Anyway, so this is a chance to get, in case any of your docs are graded down, it's a chance to update them, but they'll be reviewed regardless of whether or not your grades. And then, basically, 4 weeks later, you will do roughly a 3-minute ad / presentation of the project, plus a final demonstration, live demonstration, plus updated docs. And then everyone will have to turn in a post-mortem lessons learned project. Now, we'll talk more about this as we get further along, but just saying up front, it's perfectly okay to sit down and do a lessons learned project as a team. And then for each of you, if you don't have anything to add to that, just turn it in. If you have stuff to add that you actually didn't want to bring up in front of your team members, you can add it to the project. Trust me, that will happen with some teams. Kind of like that. So-and-so really. But this is the whole point, is this lessons learned. Okay. extra credit, I mentioned we have an extra credit book list. Okay, let's take a break right now. So you can, and let's get back here by 5 till, okay? Biology break, because what we're going to do then is I'll talk a little about myself. I'm going to ask each of you, be prepared, because I'm going to ask each of you. We're going to take roll, and while taking roll, I'm going to ask why you're taking this class, which I hope to get from it, which you're planning. With 80 of you, that's going to take a while. And then we'll talk about armor, okay, this thing, and then we'll be done for the day. So, biology break, back at 5 till.